Hi, I'm Andrew Clark, the Logistics Optimizer, and in this video I'm going to show you how to use the Warehouse Location Planner, which is a free tool to help you number all of the bins in bin locations in your warehouse. And you can get it from me by sending us a contact inquiry at logisticscloudco.com or messaging me directly on LinkedIn. You can look me up, Andrew Clark, the Logistics Optimizer, with an S. Maybe I should change it to a Z. Maybe. Anyway, so this is this location planner. I will show you how it works. Basically, you put the configuration of your racking and shelving in this first tab here, and then it will calculate all of the bin numbers on the second tab here. Now, on the third tab, I have some instructions that explain how to use it if you like to read and not watch. And how I think about XYZ coordinates within a warehouse. So generally this is what I mean. The Y coordinate is along the face of a rack. The X is along the racking going through this way. So think of it like the depth within a rack. And then the Z obviously is the vertical dimensions, if you remember your XYZ coordinates from high school. So this is useful, particularly when we get down to the sub-slotting. And that will make sense in a minute when I show you how to do the racking configuration. So typically within a rack, and I'm not showing it here, but if you take a racking bay and then you have that first level divided into 2 or 3, maybe even 4 levels of long span shelving, essentially instead of a pallet level you have several levels of long span shelving. And so rather than have one bay here that is like so that's what 1, 2, 3, 4, so there's 5 levels. So instead of having one bay that is like 7 levels, because you've got 2 levels of long span, and another bay of 5 levels, what this allows you to do with the subslotting is you can have a bay which still has 5 levels, but it has 2 sub levels within it. And that's what the XYZ coordinates here are allowed, XYZ subslots let you do. So let's do an example. So these first 3 columns are just purely for information. You can use them any way you like. So let's just call the first warehouse W1, and the area, we'll call that racking, and the slot description, let's call it a pallet, and then a rack number. This is a text field, so I can type in 01 without the apostrophe, and that will accept that. And so we have rack number 1, and let's say that has 6 bays of racking, and it's 5 levels high, and then it has 2 pallets per bay, which we will put in the Y slot here. And when we do that and we look at our location list, we'll see that it's calculated all of the bin locations for that rack down here. So warehouse, we've got our areas, the slot descriptions all there. So we can see here so we get the elements spread out across here for rack, bay, level, and then slot XYZ. And so we'll see this goes rack 1, bay 1, level 1, slot 1, then slot 2, then level 2, slot 1 and 2, then level 3, slot 1 and 2, then level 4, slot 1 and 2, then level 5, slot 1 and 2, and then going into bay 2. So, and that's the way it progresses all the way through. So if we want to add, obviously you don't just have one rack in your warehouse, so we can actually just copy this down. I can drag it down to say 4 racks. And because this is a text field, that will actually index 01, 02, 03, but otherwise everything else might stay the same. And so now on our location list, you'll see it'll go from racking 1. Why don't we zoom in a bit just to see that a bit easier? You'll see we'll go from rack 1 now into rack 2, and it's just going to repeat all of that for rack 1 and rack 2. 3, and I think we'll go up to rack 4, right? So all of that there. Now, let's say we have some shelving. So let's just drag it down a bit. So we're in the shelving area, and we have a shelf, and so we get some distinction between rack numbers. I typically, some people like to have a separate element for zone. I don't generally do that. I'll use the rack numbers for that. So this can be anything you want. So if you wanted this to be a zone, that could just as easily be A01. And you could drag that down. And there you go, A0. So we know A is our pallet racking area, right? And then in the location list, that's what we're going to see. Now, I am not a big fan of using alphabetic characters in your bin locations, but sometimes you have to. If you used it for zone, I think that would be fine. But generally, I like this to be all numeric, and because it's difficult to translate letters into numbers so mentally, so it's much easier to go to, you know, base 6 and know that you're looking up for base 6 rather than base F and having to go A, B, C, D, E, F in your head. Just much better. So you could do that if you like, or one of the things that I commonly do is I will just use a numbering series. It depends how big your warehouse is. So I might, to distinguish, this might be, let's say we had, you know, 20 racks. And so the shelves, I might start them at 30. And then I will have, let's say, 4 bays of shelving, and keeping it nice and simple. 6 levels is common in shelving, and in slots in the shelving I would typically go with 3 slots across the shelf. And so let's say we have, you know, 4 of those racks, and then we are, these are racks 30, 31, 32, 33, and then on our location list, once we get down past rack 4, now we're into rack 30, right? Okay, 30, 31, etc., all of that. Now, you can just copy and paste these into another spreadsheet where you might want to send it to a label printer to get your labels printed, upload this into your warehouse management system, but essentially you can do that in another spreadsheet. Now, what happens if you had some more complexity around this? Let's say you had some long span shelving on one of these racks. So that means then the first level, and let's, for simplicity's sake now, we'll just say all of the first level of rack 1 is going to have 2 levels of long span shelving. So we're going to use our sub-slotting here and have sub-levels. So we need an additional row now in here because I forgot to put it in at the very beginning. So can't really do that easily. So you can't insert rows here. This has all been protected. So what you need to do is you can just come in here. If you want to insert this, you know, a second row here, just copy everything below that level and paste it down. So this will just repeat everything from above. Now we can make this, that's going to be O1 again. Now let's just do, so we're going to do the 1 row is going to cover our long span. So it's going to have 6 bays, only 1 level, but it's going to have long span. So we would typically not have just 2 slots in long span shelving. I like 6 or 8 slots because you can typically fit, depending on the size of your cartons, about 8 cartons across a bay of long span shelving. So that would be 8 pick faces. So I will put 8 slots across, and there's going to be 2 levels, so 2 sub levels within the bay, and that's going to be my first run. Now in this second run we no longer have 5 levels, we've actually only got 4 levels of pallets, right? And what I might do up here in this slot description, just to get that, let's make sure I know that that is long span shelving. So I'll put the slot description there. So now only 4 levels because we're at maximum 5 levels high, and the first level is long span shelving. So that is all fine, except that it doesn't start at level 1, does it? It starts at level 2. So over here in this level start, and you see I've got little notes up here to tell you what these all do. So starting number for levels will usually be 1, and a formula to automatically populate this value, but it may be overwritten with a fixed value. So here in this rack, we're going to start at level 2. So I need to put a number 2 in there. Now you'll see, if we look at our bin numbers over here, what you're getting is level 1, bay 1, level 1. We're going from slot 11 to slot 82 because we are 8 positions across and 2 levels high. So that first number there is the position along across the face of a bay, and then the second number, the 1 and then the 2, that is the level, the sub-level within the bay. So when we see all that spilled out into the, we'll just go up to the top, when we see all that spelled out into the bin numbering, so we'll see that here we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 across level 1, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in level 2. And that is because when you are going to a location within a rack, you go along and then up. So this is why it gives you the position across the face of a bay first and then the sub-level second. It's exactly like going to a bay then a level in the pallet rack itself. So this gets you to the rack, then the bay, then the level that you're looking at, and then the slot within that bay, and then the level of the sub-level within the bay. All right, so that covers all of the long span. You can see that slot descriptions come here for all the long span. And then we get to the pallet racking. And once we get to the pallet racking, we can see that we're now starting at level 2 and with only 2 slots in the bay, and we don't have any additional, we don't have any sub-levels. So there's just the one, because these are pallet spaces. So there's all the bin locations. Now, what if, just to further complicate things, what if we didn't have long span all the way through here? We only had long span in 3 bays of racking. Okay, fine. So 3 bays of racking have long span, same as before, but now we're going to start at, so let's say it's at the end of the rack and it's starting in bay number 4. So bays 4, 5 and 6 are going to be long span. So we need to change our bay start number there. And so over here, we'll see that we're starting at bay 4 and going to bay 6 for our long span shelving. Now, what about the first 3 bays of the racking? Oops, we haven't allowed for that. So we're going to need to do our thing over here where we will do a copy and paste, because we've got to move all of that down. And then the first 3 bays in rack 6, they're actually going to be pallets, and they're going to be 1 level, but there are only going to be 2 slots across, and there are going to be no sub-levels because it's pallet racking, and it's going to start in bay 1. So I can just type a 1 in there. Now, because it's because you've overridden the formula that's in that cell, it will be highlighted in orange just so that you know that you've done an override. So what I could do, I can copy that formula back into that cell so that it shows me the grey, so I don't think it's an override because it's not really an override. And so now what we see is that bays 1 to 3 in our racking arrangement will be pallet racking, and then bays 4 to 6 are going to be long span, all on level 1, and now on level 2 to 6s we're going to have our pallet racking. So when we go look at our location list, back up to the top again, we'll see, here we go, bay 1, bay 2, bay 3, and level 1 is just our 2 pallet positions for level 1. But by the time we get to bay 4 on level 1, we're now into our long span, and there's all our long span shelves for bays 4, 5 and 6. And then once we get to level 2, we're now back in pallets. All right, so if you need to have some complexity around your racking layout, that is how you do it. So you need to, generally you need to be working in ascending order. It would just means that your locations numbering looks consistent when it calculates. So start with what comes first, with the lowest level and the lowest numeric series of the racking, and then work up to successive levels. Now, if you get complex arrangements of racking where you've got changes in long span levels and all sorts of things going on, then this can get kind of complicated, and you might have 3, 4, 5, 6 different rows before you can actually fully document a rack. It's fine, and then you can copy and paste that here so that it's easier to then replicate that if you've got the same sort of arrangements across a number of different racks. So it's pretty easy to do quite sophisticated arrangements of the bin numbering, which will all be automatically calculated here. So you can see if you have a complex set of shelving and racking in your warehouse, and this really starts to come into its own. Now, so far we've used Y slots for across the bay and Z slots for sub-levels. So when would you use an X, where I talk about layers deep within a rack? So coming back here to our XYZ coordinates, we can see that layers deep within a rack. Now, there are very limited uses for this. Probably one of the big ones where you might use this is with a store. This is a Storeganizer. A Storeganizer is a bit like a hanging compactus, or those hanging shoe things you can get for your wardrobe, just sturdy and industrial. It's very heavy duty vinyl or some sort of plastic material. Anyway, each one of these individual columns will slide on nice glidey rollers, and you will get 2 or 3 layers deep within a bay of Storeganizer. So we not only have sub slots across and sub levels up, we've actually got sub layers deep within a rack. So you'll notice, and typically with a Storeganizer you will get 6 to 8 rows across, and in the first face, it depends on the width of the bay. In the first face, then the 2 of the columns will be missing, so that you can slide them across and access the locations at the back. And if there's 3 layers deep, then 2 will be missing from the first 2 layers, and then the third layer will be all the way across. So that's the Storeganizer. It's incredibly useful if you need small item shelving and all you've got is pallet racking. It is quite expensive, but there's nothing else that does what this does, and it's way cheaper than using a mezzanine floor. So it allows you to use the height of your building, still have lots of shelving underneath your pallet racking above. Now, so that is the Storeganizer, and it comes in various sizes and dimensions. So there's a bunch of standard sizes. You can get customized designs as well if that's what you need. So if we had to number some Storeganizer racking, we're going to have to use our X, Y, and Z slots. So let's do that. So let's say, and what I do is let's just add it into our 4th pallet rack there. So I'm going to take our shelving, and I'm going to move that down a bit. Oh, did I do that? No. There we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify this. We're going to extend our pallet rack number 4. And what we're going to do is we will have, let's say, 3 bays of Storeganizer at the beginning of our rack 4. So we're going to have 3 bays of Storeganizer. There is going to be 1 level, and this is going to be, let's say, 3 layers deep. So three rows of Storeganizer, and we are going to have 8 slots across and 8 levels, sub-levels high, right? And then below that we're going to have 3 bays, 3 more bays on level 1, and this is only going to have 2 pallets because we're now in pallet racking again, and this is going to start at bay number 4. Yes, bay number 4. And then we can fill in the rest of our rack 4, which is going to be 6 bays, 4 levels, because we've occupied level 1 with Storeganizer, and that other one that is going to have 2 slots across, and is going to start at level 2. Okay, alright, so we've got some overrides. So if we have a look at 4 over here just to get a sense of it, so from rack 4, bay 1 to bay 3, on level 1 we've got these Storeganizers. So now we have these 3 digits here, right, 111 and 388, because we're going to go from the first row to the 3rd row deep with the Storeganizer, and then from slot 1 to slot 8 for across the bay, and then slot 1 to slot 8, because we have 8 sub-levels high within the bay. And then we get the rest of the bays of regular pallet racking from bay 4 to bay 6, and then we get bay 1 to 6 from level 2 to 5 for the rest of the rack. So if we go and find that in our location list, so one of the great things here is you can sort, right? So let's say we want to get straight to, oh dear, I cannot, Oh, well, it looks like because I've had to protect these cells from entry so people don't muck them up, then the filter doesn't work. Not looked at that before. Anyway, if you copy and paste these values into another spreadsheet, you'll be able to filter down. So we'll just scroll down, and so let's get to our rack 4. And so we can see here rack 4, oops, we didn't call it Storeganizer, so we need to make sure that we know what kind of a slot we are looking at. And so here now we can see we're in the Storeganizer range here, because we've got these subslots with XYZ coordinates in our subslots. So this is how I would arrange the bin numbering for a Storeganizer. And so let's say you don't like this and you want to do something else. No problem. Copy and paste these values into another spreadsheet, and if you wanted to change any of these numbers, you could just do a replace to say, you know what, I want that first digit to be like an ABC on my Storeganizer, so I get a bit more visual breakup in this, which I would wholeheartedly say, you know, that's actually not a bad idea for the Storeganizer, because otherwise you've got 3 digits, and that just might be a little bit confusing. You get used to anything, right? So once people sink in, once people, you know, get their head around the numbering convention, they'll be able to find it. The reality is, if you're using a Storeganizer, you have something that is physically complex. You've got to be able to address that to point people to the correct locations within that. And if there's a simpler way to do it, leave me a note in the comments, because I'd really like to know. So this basically gets you there. Now, the other thing that you might want to do would be to number a drawer system. So with a drawer system, then numbering would be basically the same principle as here, but what I'd be inclined to do is I would use my XYZ coordinates, because you have to identify, say, a drawer cabinet within a bay of pallet racking. I've certainly seen that done. And you would also have to identify what level of drawer you were picking from, and then the slot within that drawer. Similarly, if you were trying to do the numbering for a carousel, you're going to have trays, and you're going to have slots within a tray, which you might just number, or you might have an XY coordinate numbering for your tray. Just depends upon the circumstances and how finely detailed you need to get. Anyway, so that is the location planner for the warehouse, and it's pretty useful. It certainly makes the numbering very easy. Trying to do this manually in a spreadsheet is massively error prone. I've done that myself historically, and you make mistakes, and then you have to go back and fix things. This does it all for you very simply and easily. The hardest thing is that you actually have to, you know, if you have a complex racking arrangement, you've got to work your way through here and enter all the data. But everything you need to be able to do that is listed here. So hope you find that helpful. Reach out to me at Logistics Glencoe if you think this would be useful to you, and I will send you a copy.